In this video, I'm going to be talking about asexual and sexual reproduction, and then we're going to go into examples of each and the process of meiosis. So the first type of reproduction is called asexual reproduction. This occurs in only one parent. So one single organism is going to be able to produce an offspring without the process of fertilization. So they're going to be able to produce a uniform offspring or a genetically identical offspring to the parent because they are only inheriting that one parent's DNA. Your first keyword is meiosis. The first type of asexual reproduction is called fission. It is going to be a type of cell division that occurs in prokaryotic cells, and it's going to form two genetically identical cells to itself. So in the process over here, you can see the DNA is being copied in these stages, and then it's going to split apart, and then it's going to form two of the same or uniform cells as it was in the beginning. So it's kind of like the process of mitosis that we learned about in the last level. So here, examples of this would be bacteria, E. coli, and pond critters. Another type of asexual reproduction is called budding. Budding is a process of a new organism growing by mitosis and cell division on the body of its own parent. So over here in this picture you can see this right here is called the bud, and it's going to be the offspring, and it's going to be identical to the parent. So when the bud is large enough, it's going to break off of its parent, and it's going to be able to live alone. Some offspring may be attached to this parent, and it's going to form a type of colony. So if you would have one growing here and you have another one growing over here, you could form a colony. So the types of examples of asexual reproduction in budding are going to be yeast, hydra, and cactus. Now moving on to sexual reproduction, a type of reproduction in which there are two parents involved, and they're going to be two different genetic materials combining together in two different cells, and it's going to produce one offspring. So this is what occurs in humans. We have cells that combine with each other, and they're called sex cells. If you're a female, you have an egg cell, and if you're a male, you have a sperm cell. When they come together, it's a process called fertilization, and then when they do come together and they meet, they're going to form a very small cell called a zygote, and then it's going to form into the fetus. Your second key word is produces. Some examples of sexual reproduction are dogs, snakes, plants, birds, spiders, and of course humans. So now we're going to dive more into the process of sexual reproduction and the different aspects that go into it. So we're going to be discussing chromosomes and the process of meiosis. So in your body, you have body cells and you also have sex cells. Body cells are called somatic cells, so that those examples would be like skin cells, hair cells, liver cells, and then sex cells are called gametes, so those are your sperm and egg cells. So somatic cells are basically every cell in your body besides your sex cell. So gametes consist of sperm cells, which are located in the testes of males, and then egg cells are located in the ovaries of females. And gametes have the DNA in them that can be passed towards your offspring that you're going to produce. So down here at the bottom, We have body cells, and then we have your sperm cells, which is the male sex cell, and you have the egg cell, which is the female sex cell. Okay, in your body you have 23 pairs of chromosomes, which means you have 46 individual chromosomes. 23 times 2 is 46. You have 22 pairs of autosomes, so 1 through 22 are going to be your autosome pairs. And then your last pair right here that is circled is called your sex chromosomes. So in this instance, this person has an X and a Y chromosome, so that would mean it would be a male human. So the Y means that it is a male. If it has two X's, then it would mean that it is a female. So that's going to determine your gender as a human. So these right here, like take for instance number 7, it has 2 chromosomes. Those are called homologous pairs. So they have, it's one from mom and one from dad. They're not exactly the same because they have different traits in them, but they have the same genes on them for hair color, eye color, and stuff like that. So one comes from each parent. So the process of fertilization is when the egg and sperm meet. There are 2 types of cells when it comes to how many chromosomes you have in your body. The first type is diploid cells. This means that it has 2 copies of every chromosome. Only body cells are diploid cells, so they have some genetic material from the mom and then some genetic material from the dad, and they come together and they have 2 copies of genetic chromosomes. So you have one from mom and a one from dad, and so they're in your cells. So those are called somatic cells. Those are the ones that are going to be diploid. So you can see in this picture that there's one large one from mom and one large one from dad, and there's another small one from mom and a small one from dad. They don't have the same exact genetic material on them, that's why they're different colors, but you have one size from each parent. Then there are haploid cells. So this means you only have one copy of every chromosome. So this little n here means you only have one copy. The diploid had a 2n, so that means you have 2 copies of each chromosome. The gametes in your body, so sex cells, are haploid. They're the only cells in your body that are going to be haploid. They have 1 copy of each chromosome, so if you see in this picture here, it has 1 big one and 1 small one. Before it had 2 big ones and 2 small ones. Now it has half of what it had before. And that's it. Your third keyword is haploid. Okay, so now we're going to review a little bit of mitosis. So if you look at this picture here, you can see what we learned in the last level, that you started with this many, it's copied, and then it's going to produce the same thing that it had before. So that is in genetically identical cells. It's going to produce diploid cells, and it's going to take place throughout the lifetime, and it's involved in asexual reproduction. So a little differently now, we're going to talk about meiosis. Before we only had 1 division, now we are going to have 2 divisions. So before it only divided once and you had your 2 cells that you needed. Now we are going to have 2 divisions, as you can see in this picture. So one here and then another one. This only occurs in sex cells, so we're talking about sperm and egg cells here, nothing else. It's going to produce your gametes. So this produces genetically different or unique cells. They're not going to be the same as this parent cell up here. When you get down to the 4 at the bottom, there are going to be 4 different cells than you started with originally. They're also going to result in haploid cells, so they're going to have half the genetic information here as it had in the beginning in the parent cell. It only takes place at a certain time in an organism's life. So for instance, in humans, in females, it happens before you are born, and then in males, it happens after puberty throughout your whole life. It's involved in sexual reproduction as well. So you start up here, it's going to go through the same phases as mitosis, prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase, but it's going to happen twice. So again, as I stated in the last slide, the cells are going to go through 2 rounds of divisions in meiosis. So you can see it has 1 division here, and it forms 2 cells, and then it's going to divide again to produce 4 cells. So this cell here is going to divide again, and this cell here is going to divide again. Meiosis is going to produce the chromosome number and create a lot of genetic diversity. This is the reason why we do not look the same as our brothers or sisters, or even as anyone on the earth. We are all genetically different. Your 5th keyword is sex. Okay, so meiosis 1 and 2 each have 4 phases. So meiosis 1 is the first division, and the meiosis 2 is the second division. So I talked about how there's 2 different divisions, and then each division has 4 phases, which are very similar to mitosis, except now you're going to have pairs of homologous chromosomes separating in meiosis 1, and then you're going to have the sister chromatids then divide in meiosis 2 to produce those haploid cells. So you're going to only end up with 1 in each cell instead of 2. So down here, this is a little picture of what a homologous chromosome is. Okay, so there's one here, and there's one here. They have different traits. Okay, and then they're going to divide. Sister chromatids are only one side of the homologous chromosome. Alright, so meiosis 1 occurs after the DNA has been replicated in interphase, and then meiosis 2 divides into 4 cells. So this is a little picture here. You're going to fill in your chart now on your notes. You're going to use these little descriptions down here to fill in your chart. So the first phase during prophase, after the DNA is copied, meiosis, you're going to divide the cells. So the ones from the mother and the ones from the father. The nuclear membrane is going to break down in prophase 1. The centrioles are going to form, and it's going to duplicate the chromosomes. It's going to begin. So in metaphase, they come to the middle, and then they're going to actually pull apart in anaphase, and then telophase. You have your 2 cells like you would have had in mitosis. Now comes the second division. So the sister chromatids are now going to pull apart from each other and go into the 4 new cells. The DNA is not replicated anymore. It's just going to go right into prophase 2. So now meiosis 1 had a Roman numeral 1 after it, and now you're going to have Roman numeral 2 after it. So meiosis 2 is going to divide the sister chromatids and produce those 4 haploid cells. So it's pretty much the same process, except when they pull apart during anaphase, you're going to be pulling apart the sister chromatids and not the homologous chromosomes. And lastly, the difference between male and female meiosis and maturing of gametes. So, gametogenesis is the production of gametes. It's going to differ in both. So, in sperm, up here in the top picture, it's going to divide twice, and it's going to produce 4 sperm cells, 4 mature sperm cells that are going to be able to work, and they all are going to be haploid. So males are lucky, they're going to be able to produce 4 new cells every time they go through meiosis, but then females down here, they have 1 egg production, and then it's going to only produce 1 egg at the bottom. Okay, I'm going to explain this a little bit. So females want to have all their nutrients and all their water into 1 egg so they can form and nourish 1 beautiful baby. So they want all of their nutrients in the 1 egg cell. So they aren't going to form 4 sperm cells like males do. They're only going to make 1 egg cell, and we only have 1 egg cell released a month. So that 1 egg is going to be very, very important. The other 3 that are not formed are called polar bodies. They do have genetic material in them, but they are not going to be able to be used because they don't have enough nutrients. They are just going to go break down in the body and not be used. So females only produce 1 egg cell, while males produce 4 sperm cells for each meiosis stage. And your last keyword is cells.